Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I hope all of you are doing good. This is the weekly market update live stream. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, please make sure to subscribe to it. And please make sure to like the live stream as well. Also, if you're not following me on Twitter, Sherlock Whale, this is my Twitter handle. You would find great content on my Twitter account as well. So make sure that you are following this handle, Sherlock Whale. And if you would like to receive more organized updates and calls, then you can always join in the Discord server. Link you can find in the description of this video. Or alternatively, you can simply just go to our website and you know um, buy a premium package and then simply join the Discord server. All right, so let's start the live stream. This is going to be an important one. If you have any questions, any chart requests, then please make sure to drop in the chat box. I would try my best to respond to as many questions as possible. So let's talk about Bitcoin first of all. So Bitcoin right now is trading at 68,000. We had this wick all the way down to $60,000 level. I was basically talking about this event over and over again, that there is going to be a huge liquidation wick towards downside as soon as we breach this important support level. This 72,000 to $75,000 level. This is a really important level. And I was mentioning this in the recent updates that once we break below this level, there is going to be a liquidation cascade, mainly because a lot many people they had their liquidation prices in this region basically. And why exactly? Because a lot many people they were betting on the fact that maybe price would not break below $75,000 level, $72,000 support level, because we did have a bounce at this level last time as well. If you remember my tweet, which I posted 5, 6 days ago, and that tweet, it was posted on 31st of January. And that tweet, I clearly mentioned this thing that Bitcoin has 36 hours before the bear market officially starts. So at that time, price was trading, I believe, somewhere around 82,000, 81,000, and it was not exactly about uh, Bitcoin creating these higher highs, Bitcoin, sorry, creating these higher lows. I mean, if you compare the bottoms that Bitcoin has created during the last 2 years, you would realize that the first one was at 38,000. Okay, that's where we bounced at. This one, sorry. So soon after the ETF approval, price went all the way up to 48,000. Then we had this first bottom at 38,000. Then the second one was at 49,000. This was in 2024 August. Then the third one was at 75,000, 74,000. This was after the Liberation Day tariffs were announced. So people were probably thinking that, we are forming these higher lows, and probably this one is going to be, since, there was this low which was created somewhere around 80,000 to 82,000. People thought that we'll have a new higher low or something like that. First of all, the structure, if anyone is telling you that, the structure on the weekly time frame chart probably looks different, there is still hope left that we can see a new higher high very soon. Obviously, that's complete bullshit. That's complete nonsense. The structure on the weekly time frame chart is not that important. In fact, the structure on the daily time frame chart is a lot more important, because when you are trading on the higher time frame charts, for example, if you're talking about the weekly time frame chart, then you would have to probably wait for 1 or 2 years before a perfect structure shift happens. Obviously, you cannot rely to rely on the 4 hour time frame chart or rely on the 1 hour structure shifts to see if there is an overall shift taking place in the market, if the cycle is actually changing. Because it's not possible that you are about to predict anything about the cycle looking at the 4 hour time frame chart or the hourly time frame chart. That would be like super low time frame. Daily time frame seems reasonable, and that's why the daily time frame structure matters a lot. This is what I have been saying for the past 6 7 months, that 98,000 was the red line. The day we had the daily close below 98,000, I was the one constantly mentioning that the structure has changed on the daily time frame chart. The structure has changed for the very first time since October 2023. This event has not happened during the last 2 years, so please do not take this lightly. Take this seriously. And then we had a few other indications also. Then we had few other signals also. I mean, you could take a look at the actual stablecoin dominance chart. You already had the signals. We will be talking about that chart later on. So the one final confirmation that I was personally waiting for was basically a reclaim of this resistance on the USDT dominance chart. And USDT dominance chart is really, really important if you have to understand the overall context of where exactly price is bouncing at. I mean, 60,000, apparently speaking, 60,000 is not exactly a big support. And we have the actual support at 53,000. But still, we just saw a decent bounce at 63,000. We'll be talking about 60,000. We'll be talking about, what's so important about 60,000. And this is exactly the reason why you need to rely more on the correlated charts in comparison to the actual Bitcoin chart. So first of all, this narrative that maybe on the weekly time frame chart, the structure is still bullish, and for that reason, you should still have some hope that maybe price will create a new higher high. Once we have a weekly candle close below this level, this nonsense will also be invalidated, I would say, and you would have a structure shift on the weekly time frame chart as well. Not that the structure on the weekly time frame chart is that important, but still, you would have one more confirmation as well. So yeah, this level right here, this 75,000 to $72,000 level, this is really important because most of the people, they thought that this is a decent buy zone, and price would never break below the previous all-time high. The reason why people were betting at this level was because price already gave a nice bounce at this level last time back in April 2025 when the liberation day tariffs were announced, and then at the same time we had the previous all-time high as well. At the same time we had the nice daily weekly support as well. First of all, remember this thing: whenever you are trading support and resistance, there are basically two rules that you have to keep in mind. The first rule says that whenever price is giving you a first retest at some higher time frame support and resistance level, then that first retest is always your single best opportunity to position yourself into a long or a short position. And then the second rule, support and resistance trading, it's a very common thing. People would usually trade based on support and resistance, but these two rules act as the primary rules for any support and resistance trader. And the second rule basically says that if price is retesting a certain level over and over again, and there is no bounce or there is no rejection happening at that level, price is constantly trading close to a certain level, then price is about to basically break above or below that level. So this is exactly what was happening in the case of Bitcoin as well during the last few days. If you would take a look at the 4 hour time frame chart or the daily time frame chart, and by the way, anyone who tried to catch the bottom in this zone was probably doing a mistake. The reason is because we did not have any structure shift on smaller time frame chart. Normally people would complain that maybe there was some consolidation happening, and for that reason we were not able to we were basically not able to see this move. But if you go to the 4 hour time frame chart, you can clearly see that on the 4 hour time frame chart, we have a series of lower lows and lower highs. We did not have any confirmation that structure shift is happening. We did not have any confirmation that any such thing is happening. And for that reason, it's really important that you are looking at the structure on the smaller time frame chart as well. Even on the hourly time frame chart also, I do not really think that there was any structure shift on hourly or 15 minutes. I haven't really checked the 15-minute time frame chart, but I'm sure that on 15-minute also we did not have any structure shift on the Bitcoin chart. So you could basically rely on the 4 hour time frame chart as well in order to see what's happening with the structure part. The daily time frame structure is definitely bearish. It's been bearish since price made a low below 98,000. Price gave a candle close below 98,000. I guess it was in October or maybe mid of November. That's when price gave you a break and close below 98,000 after creating the 126,000 all-time high. So it became clear at that time that um, you know Bitcoin's daily time frame structure has basically flipped after almost 2 years, and now the things are basically going to get worse. And from that point onwards, if you would take a look at the daily time frame chart also, from that point onwards, you can see that everything has simply just been a series of lower lows and lower highs, and You would simply just take out the fib tool and you can see that this last high that got created somewhere at 98,000, 97,000. This was just again a perfect retracement. And same is the case here. If we have to draw the fib levels, then we would use the very same tool. We would draw the fib retracement from the start of impulsive wave to the end of impulsive wave, and you can see that it's perfectly possible that we can see a retracement all the way up to 84,000 to 83,000. I mean 84.5k, 85k, and this is exactly the resistance which I have been talking about. If you look at my Twitter account as well, I posted that. I posted that this is where you are going to get this is where you are basically going to get a decent retracement on the Bitcoin chart. I mean, I was not really expecting a quick move or a quick break below 72 to 75,000. I thought price would probably just consolidate at this level for quite some time, and then it would go back down to 70. Then it would probably break below after after a few weeks of consolidation. But obviously, because people were over leveraged in this zone, and then you look at the arguments. We had this argument that probably this level 76,000 cannot be breached, and price cannot stay beyond this level for a long enough period. The reason is because this is the average price of MicroStrategy. So for those of you who don't know, MicroStrategy now holds almost 700,000 Bitcoin, and their average buying price is somewhere around 76,000. And people are actually making jokes about this as well. That Sailor basically has been buying Bitcoin since last 5 years, and now he is in billions of dollars unrealized profit. Sorry, unrealized loss. Even after buying Bitcoin for the last 5 years. He was obviously in profit when price was, let's say, sitting at 112,000 or 126,000, but we all know that he's accumulating for the long run. So this argument that Bitcoin cannot break below the average buying price of MicroStrategy is fundamentally flawed, in my opinion. People have no knowledge of history. People have no idea about what's happening. What about the Tom Lee, the Korean gambler? I mean, this is a very strange phenomena. Whenever you go on Twitter, you get to see these random Twitter accounts that have hundreds and thousands of followers, posting updates. The Tom Lee has said that Bitcoin is going to 200k in January. Tom Lee just bought 100,000 Ethereum, and that's why Ethereum is now going to $10,000. I mean, what kind of argument this really is? Tom Lee is right now sitting in billions of dollars of unrealized profit. The last time I checked, they were sitting in probably $8 billion of unrealized loss. Sorry, not profit, loss actually. And if they actually realize this loss, then this is probably going to be the biggest loss in the history of the corporate market. So it's really unfortunate that people would usually publish these statements, and people would usually push these statements, creating the narrative that maybe these big hedge funds, maybe these big institutions, they don't make these mistakes. And they would push a similar kind of narrative about individual big traders as well. They would create a similar kind of narrative about these whales as well. I was just looking at the stats. Someone just got liquidated for $300 million not long ago. So, it's not like if you have a big enough capital, it's basically a sign of higher intelligence. No, that's not really the case. I mean, if you would look at history, if you would look at the history of financial crisis back in 2008, we had big institutions, we had big banks, we had big hedge funds which basically failed. And the reason why people are so obsessed with the idea of hedge funds and institutions is because they are only looking at the survivors. Not long ago, I posted about this on my Twitter account as well. Uh, I understand that not many people are interested in reading these kind of updates, but if you are really interested in getting to know about all these things, you can probably just go on my Twitter account and start following the updates, because I posted about this thing where I basically explained that this mentality that people are obsessed with hedge funds and institutions, whatever they're buying, whatever they're selling, but they do not realize this fact that during the last 25 years, if you look at the stats, if you look at the numbers, almost 90% of these hedge funds, they have basically failed. Okay. And the rest of the 8 to 9%, they were not even able to outperform S&P 500. So if you would look at the average returns of S&P 500 for the last 25 years, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the average is probably somewhere around like 10% or 12%, somewhere around these numbers. And these hedge funds, they were not even able to beat these returns. So instead of spending money with these hedge funds and paying an upfront fee of 1%, 2%, you could simply just invest your fund in S&P 500, and you could have you would probably have better returns just by investing on your own in S&P 500. And it's not like the story is actually ending here. There are few important stats about the same thing. There was this study conducted in Brazil, probably, where they analyzed the data of almost 50,000 plus futures traders, and they basically analyzed their returns during the last 20 years or so, and they found out that people who were actually investing for a long term, without making any extra effort, without doing any hardcore analysis, they were able to beat people who were doing day trading, or they were able to beat the returns of people who were simply just doing analysis and doing all of the work, and making very careful decisions, or basically simply just doing day trading. So, it's not like if you are, investing with these hedge funds and institutions, you would probably just be able to, like, get better returns. That's exactly not the case. So, about Tom Lee, I was just saying that he is now sitting in probably $7 to $8 billion of unrealized loss. And, people were just saying that Tom Lee has made this prediction that Bitcoin is going to $500,000, Bitcoin is going to $1 million. These people themselves have no idea about where exactly prices for these assets are going. And the reason why, they sometimes, the only thing which they can do is deploy a huge amount of capital, and the second thing that they can do is create a false narrative. Apart from that, it's not like Tom Lee would basically be able to bring Bitcoin from 96,000 all the way down to 59,000 to 60,000. That would require retail participation. And this is exactly why I say that there's this common misconception among people that the market is being run by these big hedge funds, institutions, JP Morgan, Tom Lee, MicroStrategy and other big players in the market. No, that's obviously a false narrative. They require an equal participation from your side. If we compare the data, then probably 2% participation or 5% at maximum participation is going to be from these big players. The rest of the participation is obviously going to be from retail. And if, let's suppose, this big hedge fund or institution is constantly pushing the price from 96,000 to 60,000, if, let's suppose, they have this infinite money glitch and they're able to push the price constantly from 96,000 all the way down to 60,000, then you tell me then how exactly are they going to buy their positions? Obviously, if you are shorting something, then you are selling, right? Then how exactly are you going to close your position? It's basically saying that you are sh- you are buying something that has a $10,000 $10,000 market cap, and you are the only person buying that asset. If you have to sell that asset, it's not possible for you to sell that asset at profit because you are the only person buying that asset. So, this narrative again that these big hedge funds and institutions, they are the ones who are basically controlling the whole narrative. They are the ones basically controlling the price. Obviously, that's a false narrative. It's not realistically speaking possible. Yes, one thing that they can do is, let's suppose if I'm an institution, I would probably have billions of dollars. One thing that I can do is that I can push the price below the support level because I know that, for example, if I wish to buy Bitcoin somewhere around these levels, I would push the price below this level. And I know that, I can basically see that there is going to be a huge liquidation event below this level. There are going to be obvious stop losses. I mean, you need not to be a genius. You need not to have the market data. You need not to have the order book data to realize that people are betting at 69,000. I posted this tweet just 2 days ago where I said that this was the tweet: 39K to 43K is the bottom. I'm calling it now while Bitcoin is at 75K. Save this tweet, we'll see who was right. Open the comment section of this tweet, or open the comment section of this tweet which went viral, and you would see that 99.9% people are disagreeing with me. They're saying that 69,000 is the bottom. Half of the replies that you would see in this tweet are going to be people saying that 69,000 is the bottom, 75,000 is the bottom, 72,000 is the bottom, which basically gives you an idea that people are betting on 75,000 to 72,000 to 69,000 being the bottom, which means that they're basically over leveraged, which basically means that, once price starts breaking below these levels, not only their positions will hit stop losses, at the same time these people will be panic closing their positions. And I mean, let's just take the example of my audience. How many of you actually closed your positions in a loss, after what you've seen in the last 48 hours or so? Many of you would have done the same thing. So these people, they got liquidated, they got stopped out, on their positions once price started breaking below this level. So if I'm an institution, I would have knowledge about all of these things. I would know that this is a big support level on the daily time frame chart, and people are going to have obvious stop losses placed below these levels. So once price starts breaking below this level, there is going to be an obvious liquidation cascade, right? And this is exactly what you have seen. I told you several times that once price starts losing this level, once we have a 4H close below this level, there is absolutely not going to be any stopping, and price would just go through this level, and probably go all the way down to 53,000 as well. So two things I have to explain here. First of all, the first one is about the micro strategy thing, and the second one is that the most important part of this live stream, probably, this is not the bottom. This is not the bottom for Bitcoin, although I would show you a few examples, I would show you a few charts looking at which you would be able to say that probably this is the bottom, because we are now sitting at the multi-year resistance level on the USDT dominance chart. I'm not saying that we cannot go all the way back up to 85,000. I would be more than happy if we go all the way up to 85,000, 82,000, because I'm still willing to open a short position at 82,000, 85,000. I still believe that this is where the actual big short position is going to be. And if by any chance this is the local bottom here, if you would draw the fib levels, you would notice that this is exactly where we want price to go to. This is exactly where you would like to place your big short position, because this is where we have the CME gap. Okay, someone just mentioned in the chat box also. That's a very good point. We have a huge CME gap in this range. Let me show you the CME chart as well. So we have a huge CME gap in this range. Although I'm not a big fan of this narrative that price would always go back up and fill the CME gaps, or always go back down and fill the CME gaps. I mean, price may take months before it would go all the way up to 84,000. Okay. Yep. So, the second point is that, first of all, yes, price can go back up to 84,000, 85,000. No one can really predict when exactly it would go back up to 84,000, 85,000. Yes, if you look at the USDT dominance chart, then there is actually hope that price would go back up to 84,000, 85,000. And this thing reminds me of another very important point, that what's so special about 85,000 to $95,000 range? Okay, before we talk about that 85 95 range and the volume traded in that range, first of all, let's talk about the sailor thing. Okay, so this narrative that price cannot continue to trade below his average buying price, that's obviously not true. Okay, because during the last cycle, his average buying price was 30,000 something, and price went all the way down to 15,000. I need not to remind you guys that price during the last cycle created the bottom around 15,000. We'll talk about the significance of 15,000 as well. People are saying that probably Bitcoin would go down to 15,000. I would say that less than 10% chance that it would go back to 15,000. Very small outside chance that we're going to revisit those levels. But again, we're talking about crypto, anything is possible. But I would say that less than 10% chance, even less than 5% chance. So during the last cycle, we did go all the way down to 15,000, which was 50% below Sailor's average buying price. Okay, so if this time also we go 50% below his average buying price, that's again going to be 35,000, something like that, 33,000, 35,000. So it's quite possible. This narrative that price cannot sustain below that level, again, a false narrative. During the last cycle also, price had a break below. I mean, most of the indicators, the lagging indicators, actually flashed red once price had a break below $30,000 level. That's when the majority of the people actually started panicking. That's when the majority of the people realized that no, 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 price can actually go back down to 10,000, 12,000, 15,000. these regions, and this is exactly what happened. And price continued to trade at these levels, for months. Okay, this is exactly what happened during the last cycle as well, which brings me to my second important point about how the bottoms are actually created. Like, how exactly would price create these bottoms? It's never really going to be like this. Okay, it's never really going to be like this v-shaped recovery. It's not possible, especially when you are creating the cycle bottoms. I absolutely do not believe that this is the bottom, because first of all, we have to cross this very important resistance, 72,000 to 75,000. Okay. And then at the same time, we'll talk about the 85 to $95,000 level as well. And then we'll talk about the short term holders as well. So we have to basically talk about three important things in just one context. First of all, short term holders, people who bought Bitcoin during the last, let's say, 3 months or 6 months, their average buying price is somewhere around 97,000 to 115,000. So, this is the average buying price of the short term holders. And by the way, all of this data you would find any website that is providing the on-chain matrix. You don't have to do anything. You can go on Glassnode. You can use any other platform to find all of this data. It's not like I'm just making up any of these things. All of this data is publicly available. So for the short-term holders, you have to realize that for the short-term holders, the average buying price is 97,000 to 115,000. And if, let's suppose, we're just talking about the, let's just not talk about 97,000 or 115,000. Let's just talk about 105,000, in the middle of this average buying price range. Then we are already sitting almost 36% below their average buying price, which means that anyone who bought Bitcoin during the last 3 to 6 months, now they are in huge loss. And at some point in time, these people, they're going to panic. And the majority of them are already panicking. One example is in the form of this huge move downside that you have just seen. Remember that this huge move downside, this wick all the way down to 60,000, may not necessarily be because people are having strong bids at this level. It's not necessarily because people are buying at this level, buying at 60,000 or 61,000. It may simply just be because it may simply just be because this liquidation wick has ended. You have to realize that when people have their open long positions in this range, and when these long positions will be liquidated, okay, or when people will be panic closing their positions, that's when the liquidation wicks are created. Okay, that's when you have this v-shaped recovery sort of a thing, because all these people have now been liquidated, and it's obviously price will go all the way back up, and that's how you have this v-shaped recoveries also. So it's not necessarily that you have some bids placed at this level. It's not necessarily that you have some huge buying taking place at this level. It's simply just because this liquidation event has ended, and price is simply just liquidated the majority of the people, and there is not enough room for price to go all the way down to 50,000 or 53,000 in this one candle. It will happen eventually. First of all, realize this thing. It will happen eventually, but at the same time, it's definitely not like, price would just continue to go down, because all these people, they have been liquidated, and this is a sign that the majority of the people, they were over leveraged in this zone, in this particular zone that we're talking about, this 72 to $75,000 zone. People were betting too much at this zone. I realized it immediately as soon as I posted this tweet. 90% people were saying that no, it cannot break below 69,000. This is the all-time high. 68,000. People were throwing slurs. People were throwing people were just saying all sorts of nasty stuff to me in the comment section, in the replies, saying that no, it cannot break below 69,000, 68,000, 72,000, 74,000. So it basically shows you that people are panicking, right? They would not just be abusing you if they're not panicking, because otherwise they would simply just be feeling comfortable about their position. This shows you the desperation that we have in the market right now, because people are genuinely frustrated as to what exactly is happening. We'll be talking about what's happening later on. But yeah, so the short-term holders, 197,000 to 115,000, this is what their average buying price is. And then we have the second zone, which is 85,000 to $95,000 zone, which is really, really important. So in my last tweet also, some of my previous tweets, I have discussed this zone over and over again, 85,000 to 95,000. And I have basically explained that price continued to trade in this range for almost 5 to 6 months, almost for 4 or 5 months, right? 3 4 months, not exactly 5 months, 3 to 4 months. Price continued to trade in this range. And if you look at the volume, there has been huge volume traded in this range. And the majority of that was not sell volume. The majority of the volume was not from the sell side, it was from the buying side. Because for obvious reasons, if I show you the USDT dominance chart, people thought that, because this was the bottom for Bitcoin, this was the bottom for Bitcoin, this was the bottom for Bitcoin, this was 38,000, this was 49,000, this was 72,000. So people thought that, again, this is going to be the bottom for Bitcoin. And I would explain to you why exactly this was not the bottom for Bitcoin, 82,000 I'm talking about, because price was constantly consolidating in this range. So one thing you need to understand is that we have a huge buying that took place. Now, it's not like it was only done by the retail, it was also being done by the institutions as well. Okay, this is the important part. So we have major buying which took place in this 85,000 to $95,000 range, which basically tells you that now all these people, let's just take the example of Tom Lee. I mean, he invested heavily in Ethereum, and I have no idea about his average buying price, but it's probably going to be somewhere around, I guess, 3,000 or something like that. Please, let me know the exact buying price. And someone is asking me about Ethereum's buying zone. I would say 1,200. Okay, I was the one who said that, sell all of your bags of Ethereum at 4,100. I bought again at 3,000, but as soon as I saw the consolidation, I said, no, no, I'm exiting break even. I would probably buy at 2,100. But as soon as I saw the reaction at 2,100, it was a horrible reaction. And now I'm waiting for 1,200. And I believe that 1,200 is going to be a decent buying zone, especially if you are accumulating Ethereum, for long term. So short term holders, 97,000 to 115,000. Then we have 85,000, $95,000 range. The majority of the people, the majority of the buying took place in this 85,000 to $95,000 range. And then you have people who are now stuck in their positions in between 72,000 to 76,000. I'm not saying that Saylor is going to bail out of his positions. I mean, he is basically he's basically busy posting these AI generated memes and all that on his Twitter account. That's what he is doing right now. So he's less bothered because it's not like it's his own money. The money is belongs to his clients, and same is the case with Tom Lee as well. It's not like these people are investing their own money. They are simply just managing the funds. Yes, I'm thinking about 1,200 for Ethereum. At 4,100, during these same live streams, I was the guy saying 2,100. I shorted Ethereum at 3,700, and I was people were making fun of me, saying that, are you like kidding? Because how can Ethereum go all the way down to 2,100? I did show you, and all of these live streams are available on YouTube. You can see those live streams, you can watch these live streams. I was talking about the pattern which was quite similar to 2021. I showed you guys that pattern, the weekly time frame trend line, and I told you that 2,100 is where we are going, at least for the next 5 to 6 months. But anyways, we'll be talking about that part later on. And then we have this 72 to $76,000 range, which I just showed you that people are desperate in this range. People bought in this range, in the 72 to $76,000 range, thinking that price would never break below 72 to $76,000, break below this range, because this is, for whatever reason they were doing so. I mean, you cannot really name all of the reasons, but people had different reasons to buy at this level. Now, the big question is that what are these people going to do? Okay, so we have two options. If price continues to go down, which I don't think is going to be the case, price just cannot continue to go down. We already had a massive move during the last 1 week or so. So, there is definitely going to be some form of recovery. It's not like we're going to 38K in the next 1 or 2 weeks. That's not how the bottom is created. Price would just continue to consolidate around these levels for next 3 4 months, and that is how the bottom will be created. uh, the big question which I was talking about is that how are these people going to behave, how are these people going to react once they have to bail out of their positions. I'm talking about people who bought around 72,000, 76,000. These people are desperate. I just showed you examples. Go on Twitter and click the comment section, and you would see how desperate these people are. 85,000 to 95,000 institutions are desperate there, because most of the institutional buying took place in this range, 85,000 to 95,000, especially for those who were late. And now these people are completely desperate. okay, because they want to exit their positions. They cannot afford to have a 20%, 30% loss, okay, because they are afraid Bitcoin already is a risk asset. Bitcoin already is a very risky position. So these people are actually afraid, and they would try their best to bail out of their positions. So the thing which I'm trying to explain is that forget about the short term holders that who have their buying price between 97,000 to 113,000. You need to be focused on these two levels, 75,000 to 72,000, and then 85,000 to 95,000. I highly doubt if we would go back up to 95,000, especially considering that on the daily time frame chart, we have a very clear pattern that 61865. That's where a major resistance is, which has not been retested, by the way. Okay, this is the important part. 0.618, 0.65, that's where the fib levels are present right now. Okay, if you would start mapping the bearish structure. And by the way, the same thing happened last time as well. If you would draw the fib levels from the start of impulsive wave, okay, that's where the impulsive wave started, 107,000, all the way down to this major swing low at 80,000, you would realize that we simply just gave a lower high, or we simply just had a retracement wave towards the upside. And a similar kind of retracement wave you are going to see in this situation also. And two things are going to happen. People would try to exit their positions break even because they are desperate now. They have seen Bitcoin go all the way down to 60,000. So these people, they're going to feel desperate. And as a result of it, they would try to exit their positions. I mean, you cannot really predict where the big dump is going to happen. I would try my best to position into a short around 72 to $75,000 range as well, but that's going to be a bit of a risky short. I would go more heavy on my short position at $85,000 to $95,000 range. I highly doubt if it would go all the way up to 95,000. I believe that 85, I mean 84.5 to 87, 89, that's going to be more than enough, and we will simply just place a stop loss above $90,000 level. And I already explained to you the reason that people would try to exit their positions break even. These people, they are already desperate and they cannot afford to hold their positions for a long enough period. Okay, even if it's institutions, even if it's just retail public, general public, and if you look at the average timeline also, if you look at the previous data, you would realize that uh, we just have 30 to 60 days. So 30 to 60 days is basically the average period before a short-term holder starts exiting their positions. I know a lot many people who invested way more than they can basically afford to do, okay, into Bitcoin and into other assets around these price levels, thinking that maybe it will go all the way up to half a million, just because Tom Lee said, just because Michael Saylor is saying, just because some other person said. I mean, if they knew that Bitcoin is going to half a million or 1 million, don't you think that they would basically bet everything that they have? But that's not really the case. That's not how financial markets work. No one really knows where exactly price is headed towards. And if they knew, then they would buy today. They would probably tell everyone to buy. And as a result of it, price would go to half a million immediately. So, that's not how financial markets work. No one really knows where exactly price is headed towards, because the important part is that no one party is moving the market. Okay, understand that no one party is moving the market. It's not whales or institutions moving the market, because if that was the case, then they would simply just continue to bid on the price. They would just continue to buy a certain asset, and the price for that asset would continue to go up, and they would not really be able to sell. This is a classical market cap problem. This is the classical problem that you would encounter, classical liquidity problem, classical low market cap problem, that if you have so much capital and you are investing into something that has not enough liquidity, then you are basically driving the price by 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 10% every time you are buying. Okay, so that's not how things work. So I was saying that 75,000, 72,000, that's going to be the first resistance range. And it's going to be a really, really important level. I highly doubt if we will be able to reclaim this level, especially on the higher time frame charts. I mean, if we do so, especially considering that we already have a daily time frame candle below, if this daily candle also closes below this level, then chances I would say would be less than 40%. And if we close a weekly candle, then there is going to be a very small chance that price would recover beyond this level, or price would go all the way up to 84,000, 85,000. We'll simply just have to place the short at this level. But theoretically speaking, I would say that the best possible point to short it's still going to be 85,000, 84,000, because that's where we have the majority of the confluences. We know that this was the range where the majority of the people bought into Bitcoin. This is the range where we have an untested resistance. This is the range where we have so many other confluences aligned, like the FIP levels and a few other confluences. And that's why if price goes back up to 85,000, 84,000, you should close your eyes and you should start shorting Bitcoin. And for Ethereum, the range is again 2,800 to 3,000, 3,100. If it goes back up to that level, then you should basically consider shorting Bitcoin, with all of your might. And another reason why this level becomes so important is because on the USDT dominance chart, we're talking about this support. Okay, and by the way, now it's time to talk about the USDT dominance chart also, because some important, some interesting developments are happening on the USDT dominance chart as well. And by the way, 30, 40 people are watching the live stream. I would really appreciate if all of you are able to just press the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So, talking about the USDT dominance chart, you would first of all realize the consolidation part. Okay, let me try to explain the consolidation part. When I say that, whenever you are working with the support and resistance levels, you basically need to consider two important rules. The first one is that if price is giving the first retest, then that's your single best opportunity to long or short. Okay, I mean, we had the example during the last cycle also. Bitcoin had a break below this level, then it came back up, retested this level. That's when 38K bottom got created. And 38K, you tell me what was the best buying price for Bitcoin during the last cycle? I would say that it was not, probably it was 28,000, when we had lot many signals which flashed green at that time. Or the best possible buying price, I would say, with the best possible confirmation, was 38,000, because at that point we had all of the signals flashing green. We had all of the confirmation, we had all of the confluences screaming that okay, the bull market has basically started, Bitcoin has already started making the recovery, and now we are going to create a new all-time high. And at that time this first retest was happening. Then again, this was 49,000, this was 72,000, and then we just had a break above this level. So two things you would notice here. The first one is obviously the first retest part, and the second important part is in the form of consolidation. Okay, this consolidation that we saw took place at this level. And now, if you compare it with the previous, you know, with the previous rejections, you would notice that this was an immediate rejection. This was an immediate rejection. This was an immediate rejection. But in this case, even this one also. But in this case, price continued to consolidate in this zone basically for weeks. We are looking at the weekly time frame chart. Each one of these candles is representing 1 week. So it was never really a good sign that USDT dominance was basically consolidating so close to this resistance level. And how many of you remember that I was the one screaming in these live streams that this is the gateway to the bear market? This is the gateway to the bear market. Even if you would go and watch my previous live streams also during the last 2 3 weeks, I was the one saying that this is the gateway to the bear market, because once we have a breach above this level, not exactly this level, let me just show you like this. Yeah, so basically this level, because we only had wicks beyond this level, so that was more than enough. This close was more than enough, 19th of January. So, and then on top of that, we had this weekly trend line also. Okay. When you're talking about the 5 minute time frame, 1 hour, 4 hour, 1 day, then it's fine. The breakout may take place for the breakout may not be that big. The breakout may take place in, for the next few hours, for the next few days. But when you're talking about the weekly time frame chart, the breakout may just continue to take place for days and weeks and months. Similar example we saw when price had a breakout above this resistance also. Okay, above this trend line, the first retest, second retest, third retest. If I slightly adjust the positioning of this trend line, the third retest, the fourth retest, this is when you know we had the first breakout above trend line, and then we had the second breakout above this trend line. Okay, so we had the confirmations that clo- once price is able to close a weekly candle beyond this level, there is basically no going back, and price would just give you a huge break above. And this is exactly what has happened during the last few weeks. Not exactly few weeks, in fact, during the last 2 weeks, this whole carnage has happened. But the important part is that now USDT dominance is basically sitting at 9% level. Okay, you need to realize that it's not like Bitcoin has already created its bottom. Okay, first of all, that's not how bottoms get created. That's not how price would create a bottom. Price would continue to consolidate at that level for a few weeks, probably for a month or so as well, making people desperate about that level, making people believe that this is not where the bottom will be created. People will get desperate, people will be losing all the hopes. That's not how the bottom will be created, I'm telling you that. And this is not exactly an important level also. One thing that you need to understand is that if you're saying that USDT dominance is now back at the 2022 bear market levels, or this is exactly where Bitcoin created the bottom back in November 2022 during the FTX crash at 15,000, and now USDT dominance exactly gave the wick all the way up to the same level, and now this is where the bottom is going to be. Sorry to say, but that's not really how it happens. During the previous cycle, this was the range. During the next cycle, this was the range. And during the next cycle, there will be a new range which will be formed in this zone. Because once the market is progressing, once the market is becoming more mature, we have the market cap also increasing. This is what you have to realize, okay? This is what you have to realize, that the total market cap is also increasing, which basically means that USDT dominance will also continue to increase over the next few years, and it's quite possible that it will eventually break above this level. It will break above the 9% level, okay? So this argument that maybe USDT dominance has just retested the November 2022 levels, back when FTX happened, back when 15K happened. So now, the bottom has been created, the bottom got created, and we cannot break above this level. Let's just buy at 61,000, 65,000. Please do not, get baited by this explanation. You have to realize the fundamentals first. You have to realize how the cash flow actually works, and then you would be able to tell that this was the range for the previous cycle, this was the range for the previous cycle, this was a range for some other cycle. So you can see that USDT dominance, its supply has been constantly increasing, and as a result of it, you would see that a new range will be formed during this cycle. And for that reason, you can use it as a general guideline. You just cannot use it to make other decisions. I mean, you have some other charts like total minus total ES divided by total, which is pure stablecoin dominance, and you can use that to make decisions. The final important conclusion that you would be able to draw from this chart is that this support has now not been retested. And remember that this is now a multi-year support level. Not exactly multi-year, I mean 2-3 years. So this is now a multi-year support level, a support which a level which price was holding below for almost 2.5 years, and now the price has finally been able to break above this level. First of all, forget about the deviation part, because deviation is not going to happen. Now we have the first weekly candle, second weekly candle, and 90% chance that this weekly candle is also going to close above this level. Very small chance that you will see Bitcoin trading at 85,000 at the end of this week. We have 2 days and 9 hours before the weekly candle close happens. So all of you would agree with me that it's not really going to happen, that Bitcoin in the next 2 days and 9 hours will be able to trade at 85,000, 84,000. That's definitely not going to happen. So we are going to see a move all the way down to this level, whenever this retest happens. And this is your $85,000 level. Because, this happened back on 19th of January when we had a break above this level. That's when Bitcoin was starting to break below 82,000, 85,000, And whenever USDT dominance will give a retest at this level, you will again get to see Bitcoin sitting at 82,000, 85,000, and this will happen. I mean, we have seen this during the last cycle also. We had a move all the way down to this level. When this retest happened, another price continued to move in this range from June 2022 till September 2023. And this is the average timeline of a bear market also. I mean, if the bear market, let's say, started at the first week of January, in the first week of January, then it will probably last, or even if it started in October, November 2025, then it will probably last for another 365 days or so. This is an average timeline of a bear market. And, I have a fundamental disagreement with people saying that this is a bear market. I would say that this is not exactly a bear market. You could just call it a super cycle, a 4-year super cycle. And by the way, what happened to people who were quoting CZ saying that this is the best time to buy and we are now going to enter in a super cycle? I mean, just imagine how manipulative these people are. Just imagine how these big accounts, they would start giving these kind of statements, and those statements will then be picked by these other big accounts who would start pushing the narrative that just because CZ has said, now the market is going to enter a super cycle. What has CZ done, to these other coins, for example ASTER? Okay, what did he do with that coin? We have so many different examples of the manipulation being done by these exchanges. What happened back on October 10th? Why did Binance not give any explanation about what happened on October 10th? So that's why, you need not to trust these people. You need not to trust whatever they are saying. And especially these big institutions, hedge funds, uh, telling you that this is how you have to do it. Basically, it's just a sign that the top has already happened and they're just trying to dump their positions on you. This is exactly what CZ did with ASTER as well. But anyways, it's quite possible, especially if you would take a look at this weekly time frame chart, it's quite possible that Bitcoin will now give a retest at 85,000, 85,000 to 82,000. We can definitely build a short position in 75 to $72,000 range, but that's still not going to be a high conviction short position until or unless you see Bitcoin consolidating below this level for quite some time. I mean, we do not even have one weekly candle close below this level. If we talk about the 85, 87, then we have multiple weekly candles which will be closed below this level. If we talk about the USDT dominance chart, we will have multiple weekly candles which will be closed above this level. So 85,000 seems like a more reasonable point for me to take a short position on Bitcoin. And finally, if you take a look at other confluences also, like if you would draw the fib levels, etc., considering that this is the local bottom for now. And the reason why I say that this could be a local bottom, and there is nothing special on the Bitcoin chart. If you talk about 60,000, I mean, people may give examples of those EMAs, 200 EMA and blah blah blah, but that's not really the case. It's, the only reason why price is trying to bounce here is because of USDT dominance, because USDT dominance is now hitting, it's not a normal thing. It's basically hitting a multi-year resistance level. It's basically hitting the same level where price on the Bitcoin chart was during the last cycle at the time of FTX crash, which is 15,000. So this is an important region. It's not like you would expect USDT dominance to just break straight through this level. No, that's definitely not going to happen. And for that reason, you will definitely see a pullback. You will definitely see a consolidation. Price will slowly go back up to 85,000, 82,000. That's where the people are going to get euphoric again. That's where people are going to bet once again that we are about to see all-time high. You would see people quoting me and saying that, maybe Sherlock is stupid and now we are about to see another new all-time high. But that's definitely not going to happen, until or unless we see some solid signs of a structure shift and all those things. But that's definitely not easy, and I believe that 38,000 is where we are headed towards. I would be doing a totally separate live stream. It's not really going to be possible in one live stream to explain, as to why I believe price should be going back down to 38,000 to 30,000 to 43,000. I mean, this range necessarily. I basically did my research with almost 40 plus advanced indicators. I basically tried considering the on-chain data. I basically tried considering signals related to technical analysis. I basically tried considering things related to fundamentals as well. I tried my best to make a list of 30 to 40 different indicators, highly advanced indicators, from some very simple ones to some really advanced ones, to reach this conclusion that 38,000 to 43,000, or maybe the lower 30s as well, maybe 34, 35 is also possible. A wick down to these levels is also possible. That's where price is going to bottom ultimately. That's where we're going to find our bottom on the Bitcoin chart, right? And yeah, so usually we yeah, if you talk about the if we talk about the long term holders, because we've already talked about the short term holders. If we talk about the long term holders, what exactly is their buying price? People who have been holding Bitcoin for a few years, what is their average buying price? If you look at the on-chain data, then you realize that these people have their average buying price around $47,000. Okay, the average buying price for the long term holders of Bitcoin. And it's quite common. And if you study the last few cycles, you would realize that Bitcoin would normally bottom 25% to 30% to 35% below the average buying price of the long term holders. And if you take a look at this data, then the average buying price for the long term holders is 47,000. And if we bottom somewhere between 25% to 35% below their average buying price, then you would basically just come up with the same numbers again: 35,000, 30,000, 35,000. That's basically going to be the range for Bitcoin if we create a bottom in the next few months. And anyone asking me about the timeline, it's really difficult to predict the timeline, but I would say that probably by the end of second quarter, or from the end of second quarter to the end of third quarter, that's when you would see Bitcoin creating a bottom. It could be October end, it could be the end of second quarter, but that's where I believe that Bitcoin will be creating a bottom in the next few months, around 35,000, 37,000, or maybe if you are realistic, then I would say that 43,000, 40,000 as well. If you guys have any questions related to this, then please make sure to let me know in the chat box. So there is this one question: Ethereum 1200 buy-in point is long term. And before we move forward, I would highly recommend that you first of all go and read all of the tweets that I have recently posted. This one as well, what happened when the announcements were made, what happened, what exactly was the trigger. I would encourage that you go and read these previous tweets as well about why Bitcoin is not digital gold, what's the correlation between Bitcoin and gold. And by the way, another interesting thing is happening, on the Bitcoin gold chart. So if you would compare Bitcoin against gold, you would realize that we are about to close a weekly candle below this level. Okay, so this 13.78 basically means that this is how much gold you would need to buy one Bitcoin. Okay, so Bitcoin is losing its strength against gold, and I explained the correlation in this tweet. It's a detailed tweet. You can basically go and read that tweet. And this was posted when Bitcoin was trading at $89,000, by the way. And again, people did not believe that a crash will happen. Whenever you have metals creating new all-time highs, whenever you have metals going making higher highs, risk assets are the first ones to take the hit. And once metals stop, that's when you would see the rotation is going to happen. That's when the rotation will be happening to the cheaper assets, and Bitcoin is going to be the obvious choice. But the important part is that, by the way, we had a double top during 2020-21. We had an head and shoulder pattern and a weekly trend line during this cycle. But the important part is that now we are losing this important weekly support on Bitcoin versus gold chart. So this is showing the strength of Bitcoin against gold. If it's going down, then it basically means that Bitcoin is weak in comparison to gold. If it's going up, then it basically means that Bitcoin is strong in comparison to gold. The last time it had a break below this level was in May 2022 or June 2022. Again, that's when the bear market started, or that's when the people started realizing, or that's when people started accepting the fact that the bear market has started. Again, then price took almost a few months. It was able to break above this level October 2023. I mean, during these live streams, I have no idea about how many times I have explained through different charts that October 2023 was a signal that a bull market is about to happen. You had ETF things happening, you had USDT dominance chart giving you a solid signal, you had stablecoin dominance chart giving you a solid signal, you had total minus total divided by total chart giving you a solid signal, you had so many other signals flashing green at that time. So that was a solid signal. Another signal was in the form of Bitcoin versus gold chart. And by the way, now we are entering the phase in which we have a solid signal that a bear market is going to happen. Okay, in the next few months, we are going to see the bear market because Bitcoin is now losing a major weekly support against gold. And the last time it happened, we continue to stay below this level for almost 1 year or so. Okay, so June 2022 break below, October 2023 we had a break up. So almost for 1.5 years, almost for 400 plus days, we were trading below this level. So that's why I say that you need to be just a little bit careful and do not buy blindly. Do not think of these dead cat bounces as bottom formation. That's not how bottoms will be created on the Bitcoin chart. October 26, BTC can hit around $40,000. I'm not sure about October 20. Oh, okay. So you're saying 2026? Yes, definitely. 40,000 is definitely possible, realistically speaking. In fact, people are talking about the lower 30 levels as well. It's definitely possible. Second, Pratt is asking, Sherlock, do you think Rave clears the 0.3739-ish level? So that was the only long position, by the way, which we opened during the last 2 weeks during this crash. And it hit the stop loss. Let me see what's happening with Rave. By the way, Rave is now back at the resistance. Yeah, it's back at the resistance. Unfortunately, we got stopped out on this position. Now it's back at this resistance. So if you want to short, you can do so. But yeah, just be careful. The last time it just gave a wick above this level, so that was not probably a good decision to go long. But right now it's sitting at the resistance level and it has a deviation above this resistance. Yes, if the overall market recovery happens, especially considering that Bitcoin dominance is going down, Bitcoin is going up. So that's why you are seeing an immediate recovery in the altcoin market. But yeah, you just need to be careful. I would probably just be opening a few short positions very soon. Once Bitcoin starts giving the retest at 72 to $75,000 level. How much higher can Ethereum go before heading to 1200? I mean, 2800 is realistically speaking possible. First area to clear will be 2200, 2100. Then the second big challenge is going to be, which is going to be the actual challenge, 2800, 2700. That's going to be the maximum. I mean, less than 5% chance that Ethereum will be able to clear that level, especially if you have Tom Lee's buying, which took place in that range. He's going to be the first one who would try to exit his positions. Again, really doubt if it will go back up to those levels. A recent Yahoo Finance piece notes that much of the roughly 4.3 million Ethereum held by Lee linked Bitmine was accumulated at an average of, oh my god, 3,800 to 3,900. This guy is a stupid. So, yeah, almost 4.3 million Ethereum, and the average buying price is 3,800 to 3,900. Absolutely makes no sense. So he's almost 50% down on his position because Ethereum was trading around 1,800, 1,700. Yep. So he's almost like 50% down on his position. Can you freaking imagine this? What was the guy even thinking? Thank you, Crypto Doc, for this. XRP low point 0.90. Okay, let's take a look at XRP. And by the way, we'll get a very good short position on Solana as well. And on XRP as well, because XRP has lost an important level. Yep. That's going to be a good short position. In fact, I'm going to place that short position immediately. I mean, I don't care about what's happening with the rest of the charts, but I would definitely like to place a short position on XRP. And then I would short it all the way down to at least this level, $1, or this level, 64 cents. So that's going to be my short position on XRP. Obviously, a swing position. I'm actually happy that we are now finally getting the chance to open a few swing positions. So this is first obvious support for XRP. You can see that we have seen the weekly bounces at this level. Yep. So that's going to be almost a 22% move, but the actual support is somewhere around these levels, around 74 cents. So that's going to be a short position on XRP. What's a good entry level long term? If you're talking about Bitcoin, then I obviously mentioned that, it's going to be 38,000. If it goes down to 38,000, you can start accumulating. Oh, you're talking about XRP. So I don't really have any buying price for XRP right now. It really depends where Bitcoin is at that time. I'm not gonna give you any random price levels. It really depends where Bitcoin is at that time, and based on that, we would have to make the decision. You really are a time traveler, Sherlock. From the day I'm following you, everything has happened exactly as you predicted. Thank you. Yeah, but a bit unfortunate part is that we were not able to capitalize on these big moves. I mean, we still have the chance. Price will go back up, give the retest, and yeah, we would try our best to capitalize on these moves. It's not just enough to talk about, what may possibly happen. It's also important to capitalize on those moves. I still remember a $90,000 position. We canceled that position, which was a very stupid mistake. And yeah, we'll try our best to place the short positions as soon as possible now that we are going to see a retest of these levels. I have a current limit order on 43K on BTC. Yep. You don't have to necessarily bet everything at 43K. Start accumulating in this range. Okay. Think like a smart, intelligent investor. Have your bids at 43,000, some more at 38,000, a few more at 33,000, at 30,000, so that if we have a huge liquidation wick or something like that, you would easily get your fills at these levels. So about Solana, I was saying that uh, in fact, I was planning to take the short position on Solana at this level. This is a short position that I was planning to take, but not sure how much time would it take for price to go back up to these levels. But whenever it happens, this is going to be my short position for Solana. I would be placing the limits as soon as the live stream ends. I would be dropping the limits in my channel as well. I believe that we'll get this move back up real soon, on Bitcoin, on Ethereum as well, on Solana as well. I'm actually interested in buying Ethereum, but the current structure, it's looking really scary. It's looking really horrible, and for that reason, it's tough to make that decision, especially considering that we have now this immediate resistance. So XRP has a similar resistance, Bitcoin has a similar resistance, Solana not really, but most of these charts now have just big resistance, which they first need to clear, and then we can start thinking about 2700, 2800. Would you recommend spot or low 5x? No, no, no. Don't even think about 5x, man. Who told you 5x is low? Um, Back on October 10th, people with 2x got liquidated. Okay, so just be careful with that. $6 billion in loss, but $6 billion in loss he was sitting almost 2 days ago when Ethereum was at 2200, 2300. Now that it's trading at 1800, what's his unrealized loss now? Talking about Bitcoin. Would you recommend spot or low? No. Leverage for that, since it could take a long time for the price to go up, 2+ years perhaps. What exactly are you talking about? Are you talking about Bitcoin? No, Bitcoin is not gonna take 2+ years to go up. Uh, yeah, but yeah, you have to do spot. You need not to do leverage. Any comments on gold, silver, or other broader market assets, or does your last point stand from last stream? What was my last point from my last stream? If you're talking about investing in gold and silver, then you are probably not made for crypto. See, yeah, how many of you have bothered to look at the chart for gold? This is something which I explained in the last stream also. How many of you have bothered to do that? You guys are talking about investing in gold. Have you even looked at the chart of gold? Okay. Have you even looked at the historical data? Just imagine if someone had bought into gold back in 80s. So from 80 to 2000, gold literally crashed 77%, and it continued to trade downside for 20+ years. So you are trading crypto. I'm assuming that you don't have the kind of temperament which would be required to become a gold investor, a long-term gold investor. So this is a slow investment. It can easily go down almost 70-80%. And you're talking about buying at all-time highs. That's not how things really work, or at least that's not how I think things should be. People are talking about the gold investors, silver investors, that they are now lucky, but you need to understand that some of them who bought 20 years ago are hardly hitting the break-even prices. Okay, are you made for that? Are you built for that? Can you afford to have your money stuck in these assets for next 20, 40 years? Again, I don't think so. So that's why you need to be really careful. I have a very bold prediction about the equity market, about S&P 500, that it will probably top around 7100 during this cycle, 7100, 7300 during this cycle. And yeah, I'm not going to share all the details, but it may probably happen towards the end of this year. December 2026, you would see equities topping around 70, 100, 7400, and then you'll see a big crash in the equity market as well. Usually the pattern is that you will first see the sell off in the risk assets like Bitcoin, and then people would start dumping their stocks as well. That's when you would see the sell off in the equity market as well. This is usually the pattern, because obviously, no one would want to hold Bitcoin if the rest of the market is going down. So this is people's first choice to dump. This is what exactly the pattern looks like. How you been, Habibi? I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing well. Remember me, the expensive beef? Um, what's the expensive beef you're talking about? What expensive beef? Sesh Monkey is saying, is it worth chasing this Bitcoin with a long for short-term trade? Is it worth chasing the Bitcoin with a long for short-term trade? What do you mean by that? For a short-term trade, if you're chasing the long position for a short-term trade, it's basically trading directly under this resistance level. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You would simply just be opening a long position exactly under this resistance level. So we have a major resistance at 72,000 to 75,000. You would basically be opening a long position directly under this resistance level. And this is what I'm trying to explain to you, that there is a decent chance that we will go back up, give a retest at this level, and then we will continue to just have a move towards downside. So 72 to 75 range is really important. And if you really want to take a long position, then this is a really good point for you. If we have a reclaim of this level, let's say if we have a daily close above 74,000, 75,000, that's when you can build a long position, and you can take a long position towards 85,000, 86,000. That's how it's really going to be. Otherwise, I don't think it would be reasonable to take a long position directly into the resistance level. That would simply just be chasing the price hitting into resistance level for a long. Am I nothing is saying, did you seriously forgot about uh the WAGYU house? That's sad. Dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea. What are you saying? What will Solana's buying price be in a bear market? So that's a bit hard to predict. I have not done any analysis on Solana for now. You need to understand that you would it's not like you would just be able to open up the chart and make the prediction based on the chart. You would have to look at multiple factors. Even when I talked about uh, even when I talked about sorry even when I talked about Bitcoin, I already told you that I basically looked at 40 plus different indicators, and it will take you some time to look at all of these indicators, the short term holders, the long term holders. For example, there is this thing called, this metric called net unrealized profit and loss, okay, ratio. And every time it's basically trading below zero, then people are in loss on their average positions, on their average buying positions. And usually, whenever price hits 0.36, negative 0.36, negative 0.37, or negative 0.38 levels, that's where the bottom usually happens, which basically means that 25 to 35% below the average prices, okay, for the long term holders specifically. Back in 2015, the number basically bottomed at negative 0.36. Back in 2018, it bottomed at negative 0.37. Back in 2022, it bottomed at negative 0.33. So this time, if the bottom happens between negative 0.33 to negative 0.37, then it's again going to be 25 to 35% below 47,000, which is the average buying price for the long term holders. Then it's going to be again 35,000 to $33,000 range. So you would have to look at all of these different factors, and only then I would be able to tell you the actual buying range for Solana as well. I mean, I could just open up the chart and say that you could start buying at $50, But that's not what I want to do. That's not what I want to do. Yep. It's simply not possible to make any bottom predictions based on just support and resistance levels or based on just normal indicators. You would have to take into account lots of data. I was with you in North Star, but what is your name in North Star and who are you and what kind of beef I had with you? I don't remember having any fights with anyone. And what do you mean by expensive beef? So how does that mean if we get rejected at the 75K level, it might be a good time to open a short? Yes, that's right. I mean, you can definitely risk a short at 75,000. That would be a reasonable short. I mean, even if it hits the stop loss, you just made the right decision, based on the amount of information that you have. This is what I'm saying, that I would probably be opening a short position at 74, 75, because there are going to be people stuck in this range. Okay, and these people, they would try to exit their positions if they have not already closed their positions. So there is going to be some selling which will take place at this level. And remember, soon after FOMC, I was talking about the same thing because of that wick on the daily time frame chart, which happened above 90,000. I was saying that at 90,000, a big rejection is going to happen. But unfortunately, we canceled that 90,000 short position just before FOMC. And just because of FOMC, that was a very good short position, and price just wicked up to 90,000 and then we had move all the way down to 60,000. Very unfortunate. What are your thoughts on Kevin Walsh? um so I've basically shared my thoughts here in this tweet. You can go and read the thoughts in this tweet, in which I explained in detail the reason why markets dumped, um you know how exactly his policy could be, for the overall market. Historically speaking, his stance has always been very hawkish. He has always been super focused not on the labor market, but actually on inflation. And for that reason, exactly, as soon as the announcement was made, I have basically shared the chart as well. That's when Trump made the announcement. So, what was the reason that Bitcoin started crashing at 90,000? How many of you remember that? It started crashing at 90,000 basically because the rumors started circulating on Wednesday. FOMC happened. Thursday, rumors started circulating that Trump is going to like nominate Kevin Walsh. And historically speaking, he has been really hawkish. He is being considered hawkish, and no, everyone is really confused at this point that why would Trump choose someone who has historically been always hawkish about the overall economy, who has always been in favor of increasing the interest rates to basically counter inflation. So why would you choose this kind of a person? I mean, it really depends, what Trump has in his mind. Obviously, it's not like Kevin Walsh will be revolting against Trump eventually, especially if Trump is nominating him after this much um thinking and all that, negotiations and everything. So yeah, he definitely has something in his mind. But by Thursday, the rumors started circulating, and that's when Bitcoin crashed from 90,000 down to 83,000. And as soon as the announcement was made, then you had this sell off which happened. The first sell off down to 77,000, and then 77,000. As soon as price reached 77,000, it was basically clear that a dump below 75,000 will happen. The way price was consolidating at that level, there was no buying pressure at that level. It was simply just people buying because of Michael Saylor's average buying price and all of that nonsense bullshit. So yeah, these are my thoughts. You can go and read the thoughts in this tweet. Okay, guys, I guess that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream. Please do not forget to follow me on Twitter. I would share the link of my profile as well, but you can basically search it on Twitter. Sherlock Whale, this is my Twitter handle. And if you would like to receive more organized updates and calls, you can always join in the Discord server. Link you can find in the description of this video. Or alternatively, you can simply just go to our website, foxian.org, and you can buy a premium package here, and then you can join the Discord server. You can buy using the using card, using the crypto payments, whatever you want to do, and all the mentorship details also you would find on the website. You can click on the mentorship program. You would have all the details, um, you know, on this page and join the mentorship program. And you can also book one-on-one lessons with me, one-on-one sessions with me. All of the information is available on the website. So thank you so much for joining. Take care and have a great week ahead. I would do another live stream probably at the start of the week, or like, on Thursday next week, in which I would share the details as to why I believe. I would try my best to, share all of the 40 indicators that are pointing in the same direction. I, by the way, continue sharing the updates in my channel as well, so you would find lots of information in Discord also. Market updates are not being really shared on the Twitter account. So Twitter account, I would only be posting the some unique information. And yeah, for that reason, you would want to follow my Twitter account as well. So thank you so much, guys, for joining. Take care and have a great week ahead. Thank you.